Tim Rowlands is back with me, having another conversation. Some of you may be familiar with a video that I've recorded earlier with Tim in his role as leading the Evangelical Alliance in Wales. But today I've got Tim back, and I'm welcoming him and asking him to share about Festival Church that he heads up. So Tim, thanks for taking the time. Welcome back. It's lovely to say to somebody, welcome back. Yeah, because obviously I didn't scare you off the first time.
Not quite, almost.
Oh, okay. But no, listen, thank you, because I know that with the various things that you do, that you're a busy man. So for you to take time out like this is great. So
it's good. Tim, I really enjoyed our conversation last time, Gwynedd. So yeah, good.
Lovely. So I'm going to ask you to share about Festival Church, okay? But just give us a very brief snapshot of who you are for those people who don't know you, and then tell us a little bit about Festival Church, particularly how it started.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Sort of how it's grown over the years. Can you?
Yeah, sure, yeah. So as I think everyone can see on the screen, my name's Tim Rowlands. Thanks for the introduction, Gwynedd. And I work for the Evangelical Alliance. Head up the Wales team, but also I lead a church called Festival Church. I'm based up in North Wales. I live in Bangor as a Coed, and I'm looking out on a very grey day. And I think I've just seen weather warnings for more rain. And one thing that Bangor is famous for is its floods, but we're up on the hill, so I think we'll be okay.
So this is Bangor on Dee, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Famous for its racecourse, I think.
Yeah. Just in case people think that it's sort of raining in Bangor, which is outside Carnarvon, because it's always sunny there. So
of course. I studied in Bangor, and that's where I met my wife. And I still laugh that it seems that every year Freshers Week is always really sunny. So all the new students that come think it's like this amazing sunny place. And it is an amazing place. It's not very often sunny.
Yeah.
But we live up in North Wales. I've lived here most of my life. And Festival Church can be a difficult one to describe, really. So me and Emily, my wife, we're the senior pastors of the church. And one of the ways it's often described would be as a multi-site congregation or multi-site church. We don't tend to use that language, really. But in essence, that's what we are. We're one church family made up of multiple congregations that are spread out. We've got 6 congregations. And I would say that Festival Church is probably about 10 years old.
Okay. Did you get the vision? Did the vision come to you?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, it's something that's always been on my heart, really, to be part of or to lead a what we would call a family of churches, a family of congregations. I think just over the years growing up in North Wales and in the church world, pretty much all my life, I'm a pastor's kid, and I've always loved the church. I've never fallen out with the church, and there's lots of things that have happened that I could probably be justified for falling out with the church, but I never have. I love the church with all my heart, as I think because Jesus does, and the potential of the church when it's healthy and doing well is amazing. And I think one of the things I observed, especially as a teenager, to be honest, was how churches can often get quite isolated. Church leaders, especially in rural communities, can feel isolated. There can be this draw to the urban environment, the fact that, or the thought that to be valued or recognized, you need to be leading some massive church in some big city. And just the way that kind of background affects church leaders and pastors, I think, often to its detriment. So just always carried this heart to see church leaders do well, and see pastors especially be free to pastor, because as you probably know, leading a church comes with lots of other responsibilities that are often so far removed from pastoring and ministry that they can really bog down the things that God calls leaders, pastors to do, especially around governance, finance, So I've always just carried this heart. Wouldn't it be great to see some sort of network, some sort of family of congregations that were truly committed to each other, and able to just be on mission together. And I know we've got our denominations, we've got our networks, but I think I just came to see that they are good, but they're limited in terms of how they can help churches or see churches work together more. And so I think this heart for something that was multiple congregations was also sort of bedded in with, wouldn't it be great if more churches did more stuff together and we pooled our resources? So that's kind of the heart behind it. That's certainly what got it started.
Yeah, I can. It's fascinating listening to you, because to me it's obvious that the heart that you carry is for that, and it's working out in practice with Festival Church, but it's also working out with the EA, because that's what's behind the EA, Evangelical Alliance, is that you're equipping the church to work together. So it's just, I can see clearly, Tim, that is what your heart is, which is amazing, really amazing. Yeah. So where are you up to now? You've got, is it 6? And
that's right.
the location. The locations of the churches are quite scattered, because you've got one down in Llandrindod-Wells as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. So tell us about the locations. Where are you located?
The 6 locations currently is Old Colwyn, Tywyn, Prestatyn on the coast, and then Chester, Wrexham, and Llandrindod.
Okay.
It's interesting how it's kind of happened, really. Most of the growth has come through other congregations hearing about us or liking what they see and saying, can they join? Okay. So I often get asked, what was the strategy? Why those locations? And if I'm honest, there wasn't really one. It was very much, okay, Lord, you've placed this thing on our heart, and we're open to what you might want to do. And it's kind of just grown quite organically, of congregations coming to us and saying, could we be part of this? And it's, on one level, it's been really exciting, but there's always been a slight element of frustration, because alongside this kind of vision for a family of churches, it's the bigger conversation has always been around church planting. So I always thought that is how Festival Church would grow. We would just plant churches.
Yeah.
So I often had to keep stopping and almost asking God, okay, so we haven't planted yet. We've just kind of almost like adopted in another congregation. But in God's timing, we're about to plant some churches. So I can see that starting to happen now. And I sometimes wonder if part of the journey was around creating a strong base, a strong family of churches to then be able to resource church planting.
Excellent. Yeah. And is that out of the church planting now? Is that out of the various congregations or out of the main? So where are you based? Are you in the Chester one? No.
I tend to base myself in the Chester one.
In the Chester one.
But I spend a lot of time traveling around the different congregations.
Okay.
But because we used to lead that one, we still gravitate there when we are kind of at home.
I can appreciate that. So these church plants that are sort of just in the vision stage at the moment, are they out of the Chester, or are they out of the various locations?
Yeah, so out of all the locations. So with the team, I just kind of cast the vision. Wouldn't it be great if by 2026, each one of our congregations plants another church? So we kind of set that as our goal a couple of years ago, 2026, each congregation.
So you do have a strategy?
We do now, yeah. Okay. Just because when it comes to church planting, that's this kind of little frustration of mine. We just weren't doing that. And in the end, I thought, right, we're going to have to make a plan. How are we going to stop talking about church planting and actually
put a
do
date on it. Yeah, put a date on it.
And that's what we've done. And it is, I think congregations have planted congregations. So this is kind of the I think some of the uniqueness of festivals. So yes, it is one
family
church, one church family, but I think in that sort of unified space, I don't think we'll plant from there. I think that's unsustainable. I think the only way to do it is to plant from local congregations.
Yeah.
Kind of multiplication at a local level, and it starts with each of us learning what it means to make disciples. So are we multiplying disciples? And you kind of work from there. It comes to the point where it's actually up to the congregation to think through how are they going to multiply as a congregation, and that's where we're at. And I can see some real fruit there. I know that, for example, our Towing congregation has embarked on 2 different places. They're going to look at planting new congregations. They've started on that journey. Our good friend Jay Lusted up in Old Colwyn, he's our pastor there, is exploring what a Welsh language congregation might look like.
Correct.
You know, in Prestatyn, our congregation there, that they're talking about what would it look like to plant within the same town. Chester's looking at some other ideas.
Amazing.
And I think we just have to go for it. I feel like we have to have the flexibility and maybe the breadth of openness to, because the first question we get asked is, well, how can you, I think people come with their expectations of what church is. So often the first question will be, so we need to get a building. Do we need to have a qualified minister? Do we need a band? Do we need to be running a good, what about the children's work? And I think we often frame ourselves within an institutional church mindset, when actually, and there's nothing wrong with kind of more structured institutional type churches. I would probably say the festival overall is like that. But I think we have to be open to almost back to old school home groups, micro church, organic ways of seeing Christian communities grow in different locations. And it's quite a challenge because we bring our mindset, our expectation, our experience of church. I think God's doing something new. And
yeah, I would agree, because it's the heart to plant that's the most important thing, isn't it? Because you can put structures in place, you can get a building, you can get a band, you can get children's work, but if the heart isn't there to actually plant a church, then it's going to be a labor, and the chances are it will fold. But if somebody's got a heart to do it and willing to just step out to do something, even if it starts in a home group or a congregation of 6 or whatever, you're on your way then, aren't you? You're part of Assemblies of God, I think, aren't you? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we are. Yeah.
With regard to the church family now, Festival Church, the 6 locations, what would you say is the DNA that runs through that brings you together like that for a common goal and a common vision? What's the DNA? What's the heart of the Festival Church that sort of keeps it together but takes it forward together as well?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different things, really. I think one of the reasons that we're called Festival Church is, for me, festival speaks of a celebration of life, a celebration of the goodness of God. And we'll often talk about that. We'll often emphasize his goodness, his greatness, and our faith in a God. He's the God who, with him, all things are possible. And this sort of overarching narrative that in the end, all things work out for the good of those that love him. So I think that is part of our DNA, that sort of celebration of life and the goodness of God and the faith that we can have in him. It doesn't mean we bury our head in the sand. We acknowledge that the world is a difficult place to live in. But I think that is part of the backdrop. And then alongside that, I would say we're really committed to mission locally. We want to see our communities transformed. And we believe that every individual carries that sort of imprint of the image of God and are able to serve God wherever they are. And perhaps just thirdly, I think we accept people really well. There's sort of a grace, a graciousness, I think, on festival that it really doesn't matter your background, how you look, what you've done. We're really up for the journey. I'm a wholehearted believer that our walk with God is a lifetime. It's a lifetime's walk. And yes, there's an entry point when we make a decision that we're going to follow Jesus. But I'm so intrigued that the disciples actually followed him from the moment he said, "Follow me." But were they the finished article in that moment? Of
Absolutely
course they were.
not. No.
Yeah. So acknowledging that this journey takes a lifetime, kind of slows us down a bit. I think it gives us more patience. Hopefully, we're kinder and perhaps a little bit more inclusive of those who might often have found themselves outside of that space because they don't think that they necessarily tick the box. I think that's part of what it is about.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, Tim, about the first disciples, because one of the things I'm learning is that when people start on that journey just to make inquiries about Jesus, who is this man, and sort of start coming to church, they've started their journey. Whereas I think it's a mistake for us as the church to think, okay, once they've made a commitment and, to follow Jesus, that's when they're really on the journey. Obviously, that's a significant moment in their journey. But I think, like you say, I think the journey starts much earlier than that, because they're seeking. And that's what the first disciples were doing. They were seeking, your words have got, life in them, and I want to know more.
That's so right.
Yeah, amazing. I'm sure there are many disadvantages. No, let me rephrase that. I'm sure there are many challenges of having a church family, 6 locations. Okay, there are many challenges, but I'm not going to ask you about them. But I am going to ask you, what are the advantages? What are the blessings of having a church that is in 6 locations like that?
Yeah. I'm happy to talk about the challenges if you did want to go down that route as well, because there are numerous ones.
Okay, well, we might. Okay.
But the advantages for me are kind of all around what kind of birth this is, that sense of unity, support for pastors, a growing sense of love for one another and the sharing of resources. It feels like we can do more stuff together as we bring all our gifts and talents into the room, into the pot. And if you can create a culture of encouragement, then everyone feels much better when they're being encouraged on the journey. And I've just noticed that with our senior leadership team, the pastors of our congregations who come together every week, and just that prayer support, well-being support, talking stuff through, because when leaders get isolated, they make poor decisions. Is my general observation, and I'll include myself in that. Or tired when I'm tired, and the fact that you've got a group around you, I think, really makes an impact on the church as well. I think there's this kind of me and Emily, my wife, often joke about that. I think I remember hearing this. Probably my granddad said it. Happy wife, happy life, kind of thing. But my dad's take on that was happy pastor, happy church. And there's a lot of truth in that too. If our leaders and pastors are doing really, really well, it kind of affects the congregation too. So if we can create a space where our leaders are doing well, and then we share a lot of, I guess, good practice, that's quite important. And that's good when it comes to training and for young people. The sense of feeling part of something bigger is always quite good. And I think one of our strengths is around governance, because our pastors don't have to carry the responsibility of that, or the governance aspect of things, which is becoming increasingly, don't want to say burdensome, because a lot of it is good and needed, but there's a lot of weight to it. Having that taken care of, having the budgeting looked after,
That's major, isn't it?
It is.
So so you have a sort of somebody responsible for the whole family, for the whole Festival Church family. You have one person sort of looking after data protection or whatever, rather than having to duplicate it in 6 different churches.
That's right. Yeah.
Massive advantage.
So we have a safeguarding lead, for example, for the whole organization. You're right, GDPR. All those things are taken care of, so that pastors can pastor and concentrate fully on ministry, rather than these other things.
Exactly. So, I'm not going to ask you what the challenges are, but you may want to bring them into this next question that I've got for you. Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned? Because you've got years of experience. Okay. What are the biggest lessons? Some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the years as you've sort of journeyed and as you've pioneered Festival Church?
Yeah.
And you're welcome to bring in the challenges.
Yeah. So it's interesting that I sort of hinted at some of this at the beginning, where I talked about how we describe ourselves, how others might describe us as a multi-site church. And often that comes with that is a description of the congregations being campuses of a kind of hub church. And that's really good for lots of churches. But we found that we want to be much more localized and reflective of local communities and releasing of our leaders. Now, I'm careful when I say that, because I don't want to paint a picture that multi-site churches that have a campus don't do that. But we've certainly found that in our context, it felt that the right thing to do was to be much more empowering for our leaders. Now, empowering is a often used word, often used incorrectly. The true definition of empowering means an organization that is high on trust plus high on accountability. And those things don't always feel like they go together, but they do. We're high on trust, high on accountability. So that has been a big learning curve, really. How do we truly be an empowering organization? Because the temptation, I think, is to try and operate a command and control type of model, and we felt that hasn't been right for us. So we've had to look at, okay, well, how do we? So being part of festival has to mean something. We are one church family. That must mean something. But at the same time, we want to empower local congregations, local leaders to serve in their context. Because just naming where our congregations are, Chester's very different to Llandrindod, as is Old Colwyn to Tywyn. I know they're on the coast, but they're different communities. And it's quite a challenge, actually, to be an organization that respects diversity locally. But that's our heart. So lots of our learning and challenges have been around wanting to be committed to that. How do we hold everything together? But how do we also release on the ground? And I think I had this sort of breakthrough moment where a mentor friend of mine was talking this through with me, and he kind of twigged about my music background, and he used the example of an orchestra. And actually, that's the example I now use to describe how we look and operate as a festival. So, an orchestra is made up of different sections of instruments. The string section, which in itself is made up of different instruments, the brass and woodwind.
I can see where this is going. Go on.
And together it creates an amazing and beautiful sound. But when you break it down, the string section is very different to the percussion section. And they actually communicate with each other as their own section. They'll rehearse together separately, but then they do come together. And I feel that my role in this as well would therefore be more of like the conductor. I just kind of bring everyone together, tap on the stand, say, come on, guys, we're one orchestra here. Let's make one sound. And that's how I think we're trying to work. And that has its challenges. But the word family is important too. And, for families to be really healthy, we have to differentiate. Families have to be able to grow and, become themselves individuals and explore their own, I want to say, pathways, really. So I think the challenges and the lessons are around managing that tension. So I often say you get a kind of multi-site campus type model at one extreme. You've got sort of relational networks at the other extreme. I'd like to think we're somehow in the middle. And everyone you talk to will say that's the hardest place to be. And I guess it is. But I think that's where God's called us to be.
Yeah, I think half the battle is understanding what the importance of what you're sharing. Because if you understand it, if you don't realize it, if you're a very autocratic leader and, you know, mission control and everything happens here, unless we say yes, you don't say yes. You know, if somebody's trapped in that and they don't realize, then, you know, but what you do is you realize and understand the two sides of it and trying to get the balance. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah. So we have to be high on trust, which we are, and I think we're working better at what that means, to what the high accountability also means.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've just got the same question, but just there's two strands to this question. Number one, if there's somebody watching this, okay, and they've never been to Festival Church and they're on this journey that we were talking about of actually, I want to inquire more about Jesus. Okay, what can they expect from their local Festival Church, or would that be different? Is the
No, so there is. We have our shared values, and there's a sense of what should happen when people come along. So I think let's just use the example of a Sunday service or a Sunday. If someone wants to check in on a Sunday, we'd expect them to be really well welcomed, and to know what's going on in the service, and to know how they can actually play a part in it. I heard a great story once of.
Hang on a minute now. Let me just stop you there, Tim.
Okay.
Because that phrase, how they can play a part in it, might actually frighten some people away and thinking, I don't want to be part of it. I'm just going there to sit and watch. What do you mean by that?
I think that now, if people do just want to come and watch, that's fine. That is how they're going to participate, by sitting down and being part of the audience, if you like. But it's back to what we were saying earlier about the sort of seeking or checking in starts earlier, and we found that people want to feel part of something much sooner than they traditionally have.
Wow, that is okay. Yeah.
So again, I hope that in each of our congregations, that opportunity would be made clear on a Sunday. That if they want to get involved, they can. They don't have to be a signed up member. They don't have to be coming for 6 months. But actually, what's to stop anyone participating? And we'd like to make that clear to people. And I think we've always got this eye on those that haven't been before. We sometimes use the language within festival that we want to be a 50-50 church. What would it look like if 50% of the congregation on a Sunday had never been to church before? How would that change things? What if the prayer meeting was a 50-50 prayer meeting?
I like that. I like 50%
that. Have never been before. It's asking those questions because it's so easy to think about ourselves. But we've got to keep thinking about the people we're called to reach, and asking those sort of questions really helps. So just for example, if you come to a festival church on a Sunday, you'll receive a welcome both on the door and from the platform. They won't point you out, but you'll be made welcome. And then the person introducing the service will also tell us what's happening in the service. We don't, we kind of laugh that we don't have a written liturgy, but we do have a liturgy. We do the same thing every week. But people don't know that. And, and it takes such courage for people to come to church.
Yes.
That the more we can do to help them relax, signpost things clearly, easy next steps, how people can, at every congregation, someone will always stand up and say, we'd love to hear more from you. You can get to know us this way, and this way. Try and make that front door to church life as wide as we possibly can. And we're a Pentecostal tradition, so the services are going to be fairly lively. It's going to be contemporary worship, very much focused around the preaching of the word. So those things kind of just happen naturally, I think.
I'll give some details as well, because first step usually for people is that they'll have a look on Facebook or YouTube and they'll explore in that direction. you know. So I'll give those details as well, because that might be a first step for somebody before they actually commit to, you know, putting their foot through the door. The other strand of the question is, and I'm not sure whether you'll welcome this question, is, but I've got you now here. So the other question is, no, it's not that bad, Tim. Don't worry. If there's a pastor, okay, watching this, and they feel isolated, and they've got a heart for mission, which is what you've got. They've got a heart for celebrating God's goodness, which is what you've got. Yeah, they've got a heart for, you know, people, and wanting to welcome people and not being judgmental on people, but just because the grace is upon them. And they're interested in thinking, you know, oh, I'd like to have a word with this Tim Rowlands, and maybe, you know, explore the possibility of coming into this festival church family. Is that something that's available to them?
Yeah. There's nothing formal available as such, but we're quite relational. It's one of our values.
Yeah.
You know, and we're always up for a conversation. And if there's anything we can ever do to help, you know, nothing is hidden in festival. I often get asked about our constitution, for example, or how we manage finances across different locations, and where we can, we always share stuff so people can have a look. We're more than happy to open the bonnet, as it were, and often leaders like to have a look at what's under the bonnet and how it's working. But yeah, we're more than up for any conversation around that sort of thing.
Yeah. And again, there'll be details to personally contact you. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely. And the things I love those conversations, because I feel like I've got so much to learn. So the more leaders I chat to, I've kind of put my antennas up. Okay, Lord, what can I learn in this conversation now? You know, what is it you're doing here that maybe I could take and apply within festivals? So, yeah, I kind of start those sort of conversations off by saying we feel that we're very much at the start of a journey here. That festival is just, I feel like we're only just turning the first page of the festival church story, if I'm honest. Yeah, who knows what's in store and how it looks. And that's another, sorry, I could just keep going about these things for hours.
Carry on.
But, you know, one thing that I've learned, another learning thing, is everything changes quite quickly and quite often. I feel like we're having to restructure every 18 months, if I'm honest, how we do stuff, how we kind of keep up with things, how we look after people. It feels like every 18 months we're having to revisit our kind
and realign things.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Yeah, that's exactly the word. Yeah.
Excellent. Tim, thank you very much for the time that you've taken. Okay. And like I say, I'll put some details on so that people can get in touch with you. But for now, sir, thank you very much. Not that
Thanks,
Sir, no, not that you're Sir Tim Rowlands. I won't let you out of the bag now. New Year's not on his list. This has been recorded in December, and I've let it out the bag. Oh my word! No, sorry. It's just you know, honoring you, really honoring you, because you're a great leader. Yeah, you're a great leader. So, yeah, Tim. I want to laugh now, Sir Tim. That suits you, actually. That suits you. Oh, no. Sorry. Yeah, Tim, it's great knowing you. It's great hearing about what you're doing, both with the Evangelical Alliance and Festival Church. So thank you very much. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Gareth.
Yeah, and I'm looking now for something else to get you back on, because
I'm sure we can think of something.
You're a great communicator. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.